No one knows exactly when it started, but the unsettling feeling had been a constant companion for weeks. It was a cold, prickly sensation at the back of my neck, the kind you get when you're being watched. I'd be walking home from the late shift at the diner, the streetlights casting long, distorted figures ahead of me. And I swear one of them was moving just a little too slow, a little too deliberately. It never made a sound, a whisper, or a footfall. It was simply there, a presence clinging to the edge of my perception, a darker patch in the night that seemed to follow my every step. The first few times, I dismissed it as paranoia, a side effect of long hours and too much caffeine. But then, the sightings became more frequent, more undeniable. A fleeting glimpse in the reflection of a shop window as I passed, a humanoid silhouette standing motionless at the far end of an empty subway platform, a shape lingering in the doorway of a darkened alley. It was always just out of focus, a blur at the periphery of my vision. Every time I whipped my head around to confront it, to get a clearer look, there was nothing. The alley was empty, the platform was deserted. The reflection in the glass showed only my own tired, pale face staring back. I tried taking different routes home, weaving through unfamiliar streets and cutting across the city park, but it made no difference. The feeling persisted, and the fleeting glimpses continued. It was like being haunted by my own shadow, only this one had a mind of its own. It was a silent, patient stalker, and its ambiguity was the most terrifying part. It didn't threaten me, it didn't approach me, it just watched. The constancy of its presence was a form of psychological warfare, slowly eroding my sense of safety, turning my own city into a labyrinth with an unseen predator at its center. My world, once familiar and mundane, was now laced with a persistent low-grade terror. The shadow remained a silent, inscrutable observer, but its proximity was changing. What started as a distant figure at the end of a long street began to feel much, much closer. I started seeing it during the day. A dark form standing across the street from the diner where I worked, partially obscured by the midday crowds, yet distinct in its stillness. A silhouette in the window of an abandoned building 2 stories above the sidewalk I was walking on. It felt like it was closing a net around me, tightening its grip with each passing hour. My attempts to capture it, to prove I wasn't losing my mind, were all failures. I'd pull out my phone, my fingers fumbling with the camera app, but by the time I pointed the lens, the space would be empty. The pictures showed nothing but ordinary cityscapes devoid of anything unusual. Friends I confided in gave me worried looks, suggesting I get more sleep, maybe see a doctor. They saw my exhaustion, the dark circles under my eyes, but they couldn't see the cause. They couldn't see the silent figure that was always there, just over my shoulder. The relentless observation had a physical effect. I stopped sleeping. How could I, when I jolt awake in the dead of night, convinced I saw a shape darker than the surrounding blackness standing in the corner of my bedroom? I'd lie there for hours, heart pounding against my ribs, eyes straining in the dark until the first gray light of dawn broke through the blinds, revealing an empty room. But the feeling of being watched never left. It was in my apartment with me, a suffocating presence that made the air feel thick and heavy. The silence was the worst part. An animal growls, a human threatens, but this thing just existed. Its silence was a void that my own fear rushed to fill with horrifying possibilities. It was a predator that didn't need to roar to be terrifying. Its patience was its greatest weapon. The closer it got, the more it felt like a countdown to something awful, a final, inevitable confrontation that I was powerless to stop. Then, one night, everything changed. I was walking home, the usual dread a cold knot in my stomach. The streets were slick with a recent rain, reflecting the neon signs in blurry watercolor streaks. I could feel it behind me, closer than ever before. I didn't need to look. I could sense its cold, empty gaze on my back. I rounded the corner onto my own street, my keys already in my trembling hand, and that's when I noticed the silence. Not the shadow silence that was a given. This was a different kind of quiet. The usual city hum had died down. The air was unnaturally still. I glanced over my shoulder, expecting the familiar, terrifying silhouette. It wasn't there. For the first time in months, the space behind me was empty. I spun around, scanning the entire length of the street, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm. Nothing. The alleyways were vacant. The rooftops were clear. It was gone. The shadow, my constant, silent companion, had vanished completely. The relief I expected to feel never came. In its place, a new and far more profound horror bloomed in my chest, cold and sharp. The presence was gone, but the fear it had cultivated remained, amplified and twisted into something else. It was the chilling sense of dread that comes after the jump scare, the lingering terror in the silence after the scream. Its absence was more frightening than its presence had ever been. It felt like the hunter had finally cornered its prey and was now simply waiting for the right moment to strike. I stumbled into my apartment, locking and deadbolting the door, my back pressed against it as I scanned the familiar room. Everything was as I had left it, yet nothing felt right. The air was still thick with that suffocating feeling, but now it was charged with a terrible anticipation. The silence in the room was no longer just an absence of sound. It was a living entity, a heavy blanket of pure dread. The game was over. The chase had ended. And as I stood there, paralyzed in the center of my own living room, a deep, chilling realization washed over me. See, what I didn't understand before was that the shadow wasn't just following me to scare me. It was leading me somewhere. A destination. Not a physical place, but a state of mind, a breaking point of absolute terror. And as my eyes fell upon my own reflection in a dark television screen across the room, I finally saw it. It wasn't behind me anymore.